Welcome to the Northeast Kingdom Voice. I'm your host, Scott Wheeler. November is hunting season in Vermont. And when most people think of hunters, especially deer hunters, they often think of men with beards. Something about deer hunting. Men seem to think they have to grow beards. Well, today's guest is a deer hunter, but you will notice that Shelby Blake does not have a beard. Welcome to the show, Shelby.
Thank you.
So tell me, why do men feel they have to grow a beard for deer hunting?
I'm not quite sure. I know that this whole No Shave November thing started, and then I think it's become like competitions with who can grow the longest beard and the biggest beard, and I don't know if they're trying to keep warm or prove a point. I don't really know.
So do women just not shave their legs?
Oh God, no, I couldn't do that. I think some women try to, put the competition up too. If you don't shave, then I don't have to shave, but I clearly would like to shave. And
so, usually I've had hunters on here before, particularly the ever shy Ron Wright.
Yeah.
And anybody who knows Ron will acknowledge he isn't shy.
Not at all.
But he's been on here. But usually we don't see hunters as somebody who looks like you. Are there many women out there?
There are definitely more. I think that it's something that's starting to get a lot bigger. I think a lot of women are taking interest in it, whether they're actually going out and hunting or just wanting to be outside more. I see a lot more girls going out and buying their own guns and like learning to shoot them. I don't know if there's many that actually go out and take an animal as food, or if they just do it for the sporting of learning to have protection for themselves.
I know my wife grew up with all brothers who all hunted. I mean, they're big hunters. Her father hunted, but there's no way she would go out and do the dirty deed herself.
Right.
And my daughter, who you went to school with, if she were starving, she might contemplate it. So what makes you tick?
Honestly, as a small child, I was not okay with hunting at all. My father shot his first deer when I was a young kid, and I think I didn't speak to him for like 2 weeks. I was very upset with it. But as a kid, you don't understand that it's food.
Right.
And I thought that it was just you went out and you killed an animal and you took something's life. And as I got older, I realized more of the management purposes of it, more of the being outside. I just learned more. I guess I found more of a respect for the animal, and then I'm now okay with hunting, but I was very anti-hunting as a child.
Is there anything that some hunters do that really bother you though? Because like mine, I have this pet peeve, is some of these hunting shows where it makes it look more like a game versus they don't seem to respect the animal, because I do believe that you should respect it.
Oh, definitely. I don't know, I think everybody has like their own take on hunting and they have their own ways. I love the fact of there's so many different hunting seasons. There's bow, there's turkey, rifle, muzzleloader. You have all your different seasons. The weather's different. I love the fact that you prepare all year for it. Like my boyfriend and I, we plant food plots year round. We're totally scouting every new area that we can find. We're trying to, we put stands up, and if they don't seem like they work, we take them down, move somewhere else. So we put game cams up all year round. Like, we just want to know what's there. It's not that we're always out looking to shoot something. We just want to know what's there, because a lot of your bigger animals only come out at night.
What have you ever seen what besides deer have you seen on your game cameras? Because some of the game camera photos I see on Facebook are amazing what's out there.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, like a lot of the animals are very nocturnal.
Right.
Bigger animals are smarter, so they only come out at night. So you'll see bigger deer usually. You'll see a lot of coyotes. You see bobcats every now and then. Squirrels. You have like all your different animals that just are everyday kind of animals, and then you'll see some of the ones that you don't see as often.
Right. So where was the transition period? You went from this rabid little kid who wasn't going to kill anything. Where did the transition begin?
It actually started 3 years ago. I started seeing this guy, and hunting was like his passion. It was like the only thing he really cared about. And
And does this guy have a name?
His name is Jordan. And so I just started just riding around with him, like planning food plots and stuff. And he'd have like all of his buddies come over and they'd all shoot bows together and stuff. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? I'm just sitting here. So we ended up talking about it, and I bought a bow. And it was going to be just to practice with the guys. Like, I didn't think that I would actually kill anything. I didn't think that I would even go out hunting that year. And I got really good. And I would not go inside. I would stay out until dark, and I would have him pull his truck out back, and I would keep shooting, and he'd be like, aren't you going to come eat dinner? And I just wanted to shoot. I loved my bow. And I started putting, like, soda bottle caps, the hard, like the twist-off ones, right, on the deer target. And I would just group in those, and I was like, well, and if I missed, I would circle all around it, and finally I'd hit the middle of it, and I just would get so frustrated with it. And I think that it's something that you just work towards.
So what did your girlfriends think about you?
I don't have many girlfriends, to be honest. But the more that I started like posting pictures of me shooting a target and going and buying pink arrows and a pink bow, and you know, it seemed like a lot of girls seemed to take more interest to it and say how cool it was, you know, that basically you're a girl doing a guy's sport. Right. So I see a lot more girls taking that initiative, and even if they're not actually out hunting, they're being out learning things. Like, I think it's very important that a girl can defend herself.
Now, do you get any flack from people? Because I know when people post photos of dead deer on Facebook, some people don't like it. Do you ever get any flack?
A lot, actually. Like, my boyfriend's a taxidermist as well, so he posts things about like the mounting process, and people, you know, are not okay with that. They're not okay with seeing a dead animal. And then you have some people that think it's the coolest thing. Like, that's awesome that you're going out and you're, you know, becoming one with nature and learning their ways. And then you have the people that are like, well, you shot Bambi, you know. And I think that they just don't have that actual concept of you're feeding yourself. You're not going to your grocery store. And then you have the people that say, well, I would rather buy my meat at the store. Right. Well, that animal was somehow killed. I understand you didn't do it, but somebody did.
Right, and the fact of the matter is, Doug Nelson, during the whole debate over his elk being shot out in Irisburg, summed it up this way: is those elk, when he allowed people to hunt the elk, people were saying that was cruel. He says, no, those elk have grown up, they've been able to roam, they've been able to have a life, but a lot of your farm-raised meat, they've never really had a life. They were raised as, and he said there's really nothing humane, you know, about that. Whereas hunting, we're in a period of time where everybody's talking about organic. What is more organic than a wild deer?
I think wild meat is as fresh as it gets, really. I mean, they're eating acorns or, you know, anything that they can find. Right. And they're not eating any kind of, you know, genetically modified ingredients. They're 100% as they are. I think that people should buy wild meat and should go out and get wild meat rather than going to your grocery store, because you really don't know where that meat came from.
Right. I think a lot of times, though, we really have gotten to the point where, like Bambi, I look at Bambi as the first anti-hunting movie, because if you really watch Bambi, it was the insidious force out there. Then bullets were flying in every which direction and everywhere. But you know, the real life of a wild animal, it isn't as good as we might think it is. Is like, you know, deer just don't just all of a sudden fall asleep and die. They starve to death. They struggle throughout the winter, or they're even eaten alive by coyotes. It isn't a pretty life. Like when you go down the interstate, you know, some mornings when I'm traveling around, the number of dead raccoons on the side of the road or skunks, that's not a pretty way to go either. No. And that's why management is important. And I've chosen in later in life that, you know, I can't say I'll never shoot another deer, but I don't have any desire to, but I respect people who do, as long as they respect the animal. Right. That's the one thing that I think you can take a life, but you need to respect it at the same time. And do you find that I think that hunters are far more into conservation than people who call themselves environmentalists. You know, they truly understand the outdoors. Do you
Right.
think you understand more about the outdoors than, say, somebody who learned about it in books?
Most definitely. Just watching like different hunting shows and things like that, you learn different environments because Vermont is Vermont, and Vermont is not as animal like savvy as other places. I mean, other places actually pay farmers to leave an entire cornfield for their animals. And I understand that they don't want to bait deer, but I feel like they're losing some food.
Right, right.
Because not as many people are, you know, not everybody wants to take the time to put a food plot in. They're kind of expensive.
Right.
So then not all the farmers want to, you know, leave some standing
Right.
corn for them. And I think that people don't really realize how much of a struggle they actually have throughout the winter or
Right.
just throughout their lives, really. I
Yeah.
mean, you're constantly avoiding humans.
Yeah, and you know, one thing we don't see often around here, but they're everywhere, and it ceases to amaze me how these coyotes, how many there are, but you seldom see a coyote. But once night falls up by my house, those coyotes sometimes they just spring to life, and that's no fun to die that way either.
No. We actually have a beagle, and she's a puppy. She's only like 6 months old. And she was just having this really weird, like, howl the other day. And I was like, well, that's odd. So Jordan went outside, and there were coyotes all around us. Like, they were all around our house. And I don't know if she was trying to talk with them or what, but they're
My
crazy
goal-
how many there are.
My Goldens, when they hear coyotes, they don't. It somehow, well, it sends a chill up my spine. I love the sound of them, but my dogs, they just say, "Huh, back in the house." They have no interest. Okay, what's this first photo?
So the first photo is actually the first deer that I took. It was my first year bow hunting. I got my bow. I practiced all the time, and Jordan was like, "Fine, guess we'll take you hunting." And she just walked out perfect, and she stood broadside, and then she quartered a little bit, and she ended up getting my arrow stuck right in her side. So
Did it hit right where you wanted it?
it did. It was pretty cool. My actual reaction was, "Oh my God, I hit it!" And Jordan was like, "Yeah, that's kind of the point." And because your arrows have a lit up knock, so
Right.
once they hit something, they light up. So she took off running with my arrow in her, and she died instantly. I actually ended up taking out both of her lungs and the top of her heart. So she ran dead for about 20 yards, and that was it.
So you went from this little anti-hunting girl. How did that feel, though, taking a deer's life?
It's a lot of emotions all at once, I'll be honest with you. You don't know if you want to be happy or cry or, you know, it was awesome because I got to, like, not only was Jordan there with me, but we got back to the house and we talked about it, and it was like, well, these are your scenarios. Either you hit her shoulder and you broke her shoulder and she's going to be fine, or you took out her lungs and she was dead before we even left. And he called all of his friends, and all of his friends showed up at our house, and they were all ready to help me track this deer.
Right.
And for every animal that I've shot, they've shot, he's shot, we all get together, and it's like a big group thing. We're like a big family when it comes to hunting, and everybody's together, everybody supports everybody. It's nice to have that group of people that all share the same thing. And
with bow hunting, like when you say that it dropped only 20 yards off, but with bow hunting, don't you just give them time if they're...
Yeah, I mean, because obviously with an arrow, it's not like a rifle. You can't like break both their shoulders and they just land where
Right.
you shoot them. So with a bow, you're kind of, it's small, your arrows aren't very big, but then like depending on what broadhead you use, they expand. So you want to give them time, because if you don't give them time, and if you made a bad shot or things like that, they can bed down because they're wounded.
Right.
And then if you're walking through, you're going to jump them up, and then they take off running. So then you're kind of just pushing them further and further, and they're not just going to lay down and die. So takes more. Bow hunting is a lot. It's a lot harder. You're never really going to hit where you aim. I mean,
Right.
a lot of things happen. You need to really know yardage-wise how far away the animal is. Your bows can only be so quiet.
Right.
There's constantly things that are going to make noise, so they generally like duck once they hear like your string hit. So that millisecond, they can drop and your arrow can shoot right over their back.
Right.
You can have all kinds of things go wrong.
Now, what's this photo?
The second photo is the first deer that I killed during rifle season, which was the same year that I shot my first doe.
Right.
It was a 4-pointer. It was absolutely perfect. I couldn't have picked he was absolutely awesome. I didn't know if I wanted to shoot him. He walked out. He was standing behind a tree. From the time Jordan recorded him walking out to the time I shot him, he stood there for 4 minutes and he didn't move. He just stood sideways, broadside to me. We moved. We were in a elevated shack, so we, had to change positions to see him, and he just didn't move. And it was like he just was like, "Hey, I'm waiting." Like, so it was quite the experience. It was awesome that we got it on film. It was so cool to show like my family, who obviously couldn't be there with me when I shot it, just to have that connection with everybody that I'm close with, to be there with me for that.
Do you like deer meat?
I do.
Right. I actually have eaten a lot of it, and to tell you the truth is, I could care less if I have another plate anytime soon. But I think it's an acquired taste. I like it. I like
Right.
it cooked up with onions,
Yep.
onions and steak. One thing I've never gotten a taste for is venison hamburger. As in the hamburger.
I'm not a big fan of venison hamburger either. If you put it in like spaghetti or something like
Right.
that, where you can mix it with other
Right.
things, as opposed to making it into an actual burger, I'm not a big
Right.
fan of it.
Right.
And I think that making, grilling up steak or whatever, it all depends on what you season it with. If
Right.
you just kind of cook it the way it is, and some of it's not cooked, like cut right, because if your meat cutter, when they, cut up your deer, if they leave a lot of fat on it, it gives it that gamier taste, and a lot of people don't like
Yeah.
that.
And I know there's people say different things. Oh, if a deer was running, they're tougher. I don't know if there's any truth behind that.
Yeah, I don't
But
really know either.
Then suppose a lot of people will say, well, if there's a younger deer, it's more tender. I don't really know if it really matters one way. Is this your first turkey?
This was my first turkey, actually. Doesn't have the prettiest fan, but that was also another hunt that we had got on film, which was really cool. Freak things happen. People think that everything goes the same, and once you hit them, they're done. And this one actually took off running, and Jordan said, "You didn't hit it." And I'm like, "I know I hit him." And he kind of took off running, and then he just died in the field. So I don't know if it just took a minute for him to stop, if it was more just nerves running. I don't really know, but it was pretty cool.
And what about this last photo?
The last photo is actually my second trip to North Carolina. My first trip, we actually basically just scouted and stuff, and I didn't shoot anything. But this was my first buck in North Carolina. He came out the first morning that we were there, actually. My friend Nick was, he was in another field by us, so he heard me shoot. It was the first deer I've ever shot with a muzzleloader, which was really neat. And again, we got that one on film too. So it's really fun to film your hunts and watch them again and really know exactly where you hit them. With a muzzleloader, it's hard to tell because of all the smoke afterwards.
Right.
You can't really see where they went, but it was a lot of fun to have that and to hear Nick just text me right after I shot, was that you? And it's just cool to have that same passion that your friends can share with you, and you can all go on trips together. And
Did your mother hunt?
my mom did not. She kind of said that she wanted to, but it's kind of hard to hold a gun with one arm and
Right.
all that. So she never really hunted. She wanted to go turkey hunting at one point, but she hasn't really gone.
Or does your father still hunt?
He does.
Who can
Yep.
out hunt who?
I think I've killed more than he has. Yeah, I remember calling him after I shot my first deer, and just he sounded so proud and was so happy. And he's like, now, like, if I go out with him or something, we go to dinner and, like, he introduces me to someone new. He's like, yeah, she never hunted when, you know, she was little with me, but now that she has a boyfriend, she wants to hunt all the time. So
Right.
it's something fun that, you know, he can joke about, and a lot of his friends hunt too. So it's something that we can actually have in common and
Right.
talk about. But
Now, do you have any siblings?
I have a sister.
Does she hunt?
Not really. She says that she wants to get into it, and she thinks that she wants to, like, shoot a bow and, you know, see if she likes it and stuff like that. Like, her boyfriend hunts, so I hope she gets into it.
What, you know, there's going to be some people even watching this, if they haven't already shut off the channel,
Right.
who are saying, like, why would you want to do this? Isn't there a lot worse you could be doing with your time? Isn't
Oh,
there a lot
certainly.
of, how old are you? You're my
24.
daughter's, I was going to say 23, 24. There's a lot of people doing a lot worse
There
things
certainly
at your
is.
age.
I mean, I work 3 jobs, and when I have spare time, I'd rather sit in my tree stand than go to a party or, you know, just be out causing trouble.
And you hear so much about the heroin epidemic, because in the way that all comes out, it makes it sound like everybody your age is shooting up heroin. Have you ever seen anybody shooting up heroin, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, tramping?
Right.
Yeah, you know.
No, and I mean, I think it's all in your priorities. It's all in what you want to do. It's all in who you are as a person. I've never really been into drugs and partying and things like that. I'd rather just either sit at home and clean my house, or, you know, watch TV, or go sit in my tree stand.
Now, if you haven't hunted, there's going to be people saying, well, what kind of sport is that? You just walked out in the woods and you shot a deer. There's more.
There's a lot more. Like this past bow season, actually, I sat every weekend, and my birthday actually was the 25th of October, so it was the last weekend of bow hunting. And Jordan asked me, he's like, what do you want to do for your birthday? I was like, I want to sit in my tree stand. Like, this is my last weekend to sit. And that night, I actually did not see a deer. I didn't see anything. And that's the fun in it, though. I mean, you go and you sit, and you don't know what you're going to see. And some nights you can see 5, 6 deer, and other nights you might not see anything. So
what's the neatest thing you've witnessed while in the woods?
it's really fun to watch. Like, the funniest thing, actually, is this past bow season, Jordan was in the same field as me, but he was a ways over, and our friend Alex was also in the same vicinity. And I was watching deer walk out in front of me and everything, and they were very small, so I wasn't going to shoot them or anything. I just wanted to watch them. And I hear Jordan, after they had gone away, like, this doe had got spooked and she ran off. And I was like, well, the wind's not blowing. She didn't smell like me or anything like that, and I didn't move, so I don't know what scared her. And Jordan yelled across the field, stay in your stand, I'm going to come get you. Well, there was a sow and cubs actually walking behind me. So when you're in a tree stand, you know, you don't always see everything that's behind you. You don't always know what's around you. You only know what's in front of you.
Right.
So there's a whole lot more that's going on that you're not aware of. But it's all part in being one with nature, really.
Right. I know one of my sons was talking about the time that he had a very elusive fisher cat. You know, fishers are not actually cats. They're big weasels.
Right.
He was out there, and he finally decided to spook it a little bit because it kept coming up to him. He was sitting on the ground, and when it got up to his foot, he said, that was because, you know, they could be a little ugly, they can. Mm-hmm. He decided to spook it because it was just trying to figure out, was he edible? Was it a person? what was he? And
all animals really are just so curious. They don't know what you are, but they want to know what you are, but they don't know if you're going to, you know, harm them. So they want to know, but they're more curious than anything. Right. I've had, like, Tweety birds land on my arrow before, right. And they just look at you. And
so there are people who don't understand this, that most hunters truly love animals. Do you love animals?
I do. I mean, one of my jobs, I actually groom dogs and cats, so I spend a lot of time with animals. I have 3 dogs of my own. I love animals, and I mean, you're doing more beneficial to the animals by hunting.
Right.
Because they're not getting overpopulated. They're not running out of food. They're not being eaten alive. They're not, you know,
right.
they're being maintained and managed.
Right.
So
One thing I've noticed, I'm probably a couple years older than your father, but they will probably tell you that posted signs, those were very rare when we were growing up. Now, posted signs are, it's almost a fact of life around here. Have you found that to be the case?
Definitely. And I mean, you have, depending on where you are, if you have like your own land, it's better to hunt on your own land and then you know who's there, who's not there kind of thing. But not everybody has that luxury. Not everybody has,
Right.
50 acres to hunt on that's theirs. So it's better to go up and actually ask permission. And a lot of people that have posted signs is more, I would say, for like people that are disrespecting, like jacking deer,
Right.
Shooting from the road, things like that, as not so much people that are going to sit there and actually watch the animal.
Right. We hear about road hunters because road hunting does give people a bad name, hunting a bad name. But I don't know. Maybe I'm totally naive. As I can't believe there's that many bucks shot during the daylight.
I don't know if they're shot during the daylight as
No,
much as at night.
I'm talking about the legal. No, not the legal. The daylight road hunters. I
Right.
just think you're burning off a whole lot of gas.
I agree. I mean, I don't know. I'd rather sit there and watch them and watch them in like their natural life where you can
Right.
watch them, kind of go in and out of what they're doing. And
Right.
with bow hunting, you can get super close to them, so
Right.
you know exactly what they are. Where with road hunting, I think that you kind of take the fun out of it.
Right. I have a pet peeve that the media does, and I think they're getting better at it. If a person shoots a cow at night or a horse or something, they say a hunter shot the deer.
Right.
Like, wait a minute here. They didn't catch the person? How do you know it was a hunter?
Right.
It was a person who was shooting, and more than likely, a real hunter is not going to be going around shooting cows and horses at night. But I think sometimes the media are quick to use that term, hunter. Just
Right.
because somebody's shooting with a gun doesn't make them a hunter.
Exactly. I mean, anybody can own a gun, really. So
Right.
anybody can have one in their possession. And obviously, you're not like, the youth hunter that shot that horse a few years ago.
Right.
Obviously, his father was with him and told him, you can shoot it. So they're not paying attention to what they're shooting.
Right.
They're not, I don't know. I don't know if they were road hunting, things like that. And they were just like,
Right.
oh, wow, look. So they're not taking the time to figure out what the animal is before they actually take the animal. And a lot of them are just taking them and then leaving them because then they're like, oh, I made a mistake. Instead of claiming that you made a mistake and owning up to it, I think that it doesn't show that you're that much of a decent person if you're not going to own up to your mistakes.
Right. Okay, well, we're just about out of time. Have you ever shot a moose? And if not, do you plan on some?
I've definitely entered in the lottery every year, but I have not been lucky enough to be drawn, so
And
I have not.
at the rate we're going is because the moose population, well, the number of moose permits are going down. So you might have a harder time as the years pass. But I understand the tick population seems to be getting better, which means for good or bad, the moose population will start to rebound again.
I hope so. Ticks are definitely, I mean, obviously with Jordan being a taxidermist, we see a lot of that and a lot of, deer that come in and everybody's like, oh, they don't have ticks. Well, that's because you just shot it. So once that blood dries up, that's when they all start coming out. So we see a lot of them. Same thing with moose. They're just everywhere.
Right. Now, you said you have a beagle?
Yes,
Is
I
that
have two
gonna-
beagles and I have a lab.
Is that to chase rabbits?
They both are rabbit dogs,
Yeah.
and my lab is obviously a duck dog. So.
I hunted with beagles for years. It's a ball to do it, but when beagles want to go somewhere,
That's for sure.
they can be fun to find sometimes.
Oh, they are. We have friends that have, like 5, 6 beagles, and they have them in certain kennels, and they find ways to dig themselves out. They like to dig holes, and they like to run.
Yeah.
So.
No, beagles are sweet dogs, but when it comes to when they want to go someplace,
Yep.
they go. As this show airs, I'm sure you will be getting your final touches into getting ready for the big season, rifle season, because bow season's important, but I still think most people look forward to rifle season, and that'll be just a few days off from after this records.
Most definitely. I think a lot more people are rifle hunters than they are bow hunters.
Do you have the big one all staked out?
I don't. I'm more of just, I'll sit there and watch, and hopefully it walks out. If not, then maybe next year.
So it isn't about the kill?
No,
Right.
not at all.
Okay, well, thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you.
And thank you to the viewers for tuning in to another segment of the Northeast Kingdom Voice.